everybody. Welcome back to The Common Theory, the number one CPDH podcast on YouTube and elsewhere. Today we have a special guest with us. We've got Yami, not your first time as our guest, aka James, joining us today to talk about some Pauper, but not Pauper Commander. We're changing it up on you guys today. We're actually going to be talking a little bit about Pauper 60 card. And it's because we're all 60 card players as well as CPDH players. And we'll talk a little bit, we'll get into it in the episode a little later, but we'll talk about, how those two things relate to each other. But first, Yami, how you doing, man? How was your week? How have you been?
I've been doing well. A lot of work going on around the house. My wife has been on nights for the last month, so today is her last night. So being able to kind of transition back to having normal hours will be great.
Nice. Right on. Yeah, you get to actually hang out and see each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, who'd have thought? Franklin, how about you, man?
Yeah, doing pretty good. Weather's been thankfully pretty great. Went to the fair. That was an experience because we accidentally went on like a $5 night, so all of the county was there, basically.
Fair in Miami sounds awesome. Is it sweet? Is it like by the water? Where is this?
No, it's in the middle.
No.
It's like 20 miles inland in the middle of the
I'm picturing like everyone's on the beach and there's palm trees and pina coladas. I don't know.
No. Like Miami Beach is actually not that great. In Bayside, they put up like one of the bigger Ferris wheels, kind of like the London Eye.
Okay.
They put one up over there, but it's also Miami Beach. Like the beach is like super eroded and not that great. If you want good beaches in Florida, you have to go over to the West Coast, so in like Naples.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Island. Yeah.
I remember going down to the Keys as a kid, and I was like, "Yo, the beach is gonna be amazing here."
Rocks.
There's no beach at the Keys. It's just rocks.
Yeah.
I was like, "What is this? This is bullshit."
Yeah, but yeah, the fair in Miami is just like in a giant parking lot. It's very okay. I mostly just went just to like make my kid happy, and that was it. Like I wanted a corn dog, and I didn't even get to eat one.
Do you at least have funnel cake?
My dad and my wife did, and my wife was saying, "This just tastes like oil. This is gross."
Damn.
Yeah, it's
R.I.P.
super nig.
Oof.
Yeah, but Ron, you've been gone for a while. How have you been?
I have been gone for a while. It's been I think it's been over a month since I've been on the podcast at this point. Or just about a month. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind of a month. The first 2 weeks of last month, I was just working like crazy. I was working some like absurd hours, like 200 plus hour weeks back to back. Just like every night working till 4 or 5 in the morning. All my weekends just gone. We just had like a really big pitch for the company that I work at, and thankfully we're finalists, so we were invited back. We have to present now next week, and that's a whole new shit show that I've walked into, which is going to be absolutely wonderful. Hopefully it means we win it and we get promotions. So,
Yeah, that'll be great.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, right. Hopefully it means money for us. But more interesting than that, the last 2 weeks I was on vacation. I went to India for just a few days, really just to stop in Delhi so we could transfer to Nepal. But we went to the Taj Mahal. I took my partner there. She one, has never been to India, and two, is the only person in my family who's never been to the Taj Mahal. So now we've checked those things off the list.
Nice.
After we did that, so we were in India for literally 2 days, and then we flew to Nepal, to Kathmandu. We were in Kathmandu for 4 days, and then flew to a city that's west of Kathmandu, to Pokhara, which is really close to the Annapurna Park, which is like all the Annapurna mountain range, which is part of the Himalayas, is kind of surrounding this small city. And the city is the gateway into the Himalayas. So you're surrounded by mountains. It's awesome. We did some hiking, did some boating. It was like fairly active, did a bunch of running, did a lot of shopping and a lot of eating. And yeah, it was awesome. For anyone who can stand like a ridiculously long plane ride or multiple really long plane rides, it's like first you go 14 hours, then you have like 3 hours, then you have another hour. It's worth it because outside of the plane ticket cost, which is like under $2,000, anywhere between 1 and 2, depending on the time of year you go, everything else is dirt cheap. like the internal flights between India and Nepal, flying inside Nepal, all the food, all the stays, like the nicest hotel you could stay at, which is like, it's well beyond a 5-star hotel in the US. Like my partner had never seen like a real 5-star, like India, like Asian 5-star hotel. It takes the nicest hotel, like the Four Seasons, looks like garbage, comparison. It's insane. It's like everything's gold and marble, and they literally roll out the red carpet for you, and they bring you champagne when you walk into the hotel. They take all your bags up for you. They do everything for you. They open the door. They give you a tour of the room, and they like literally roll like different chocolates out on the bed, and you can pick which ones you want. I mean, that's this level of service. I'm like, yep, this is pretty sweet. And she's like, what do I do? Everyone's doing stuff for me. I'm uncomfortable. I'm like, yeah, you just let them do everything. She's like, do I tip them? I'm like, no. No, you just let it happen to you. It's fantastic. It was a good time. And now we're back into a crazy work week. So and back to some big Pauper updates. Actually, the most interesting thing I came back to, like immediately the day after I came back, it was like ban list.
It's like Kadotha Red gone forever.
So let's get into it. Today we're talking about 60 card Pauper. The reason we're doing it is because there's a huge announcement from the Pauper Rules Committee banning not a lot of cards, but some pretty critical cards, and then unbanning some cards. Franklin, take us away. What was banned?
So the most major card getting banned was Deadly Dispute, which is the 2-mana skull tap that you sacrifice a creature or an artifact, you draw 2 cards, and you get a treasure back. That getting banned is like, geez, so many decks got hit, except for Affinity. But a whole bunch of decks has got so much worse out of it because you can't just splash random colors. Yeah.
I'll continue with the list. They also banned Basking Broodscale. The Broodscale combo, which was statistically a Basking Broodscale to give you infinite spawns, infinite colors mana, and infinite ETBs, which allows you to do various broken things. The combo is really, really, really brutal. I mean, you could go off on turn 2. It was super compact. Has a lot of redundancy. It was easy to find. It was too good. I'm actually just surprised they banned Broodscale and not Glee.
I'm actually kind of happy about that because Glee didn't do anything before, right?
Right, which is why I was shocked that they didn't ban that card.
Yeah, because
that card sees no play, no one cares. But Broodscale is actually a cool card. There's no other Glee, duplicate Glee cards or cards in common that do that thing, and uncommons, sure. But maybe my only prediction is maybe they were going to print, some other card that does something similar to Sadistic Glee in a set this year. And they were like, okay, since we're coming out with this like functionally identical card, if we didn't ban this thing, we're going to get the combo back again. Maybe, we just don't know yet.
Yeah. I mean,
speculation.
That's like probably like a minor plus towards the Pauper format panel, that they just didn't do what they do for Modern, and instead of banning the enablers, they just banned the actual problem.
Maybe. I don't know. It's a bummer because I really like the interactions of the lizard with the other witness, evolution witness, stuff like that, with like +1/+1 counters doing stuff, because they were like, that was a really cool interaction in limited for that set, which I thought was dope and could have been a thing in Pauper, but maybe it's just not good enough. Maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I saw someone trying to build like a copium version of it with the evolution witness instead of Broodscale, but I wish him the best.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to talk about the last card that was banned?
Yeah, if Gator was here, this would have been perfect.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because we all know that I am notoriously the red player.
You're the mono red player, right?
So the last card is that was banned was Kadotha Red, Rebirth, which is one of the mainstays of Kadotha Red. Which honestly I did play in Standard when it was first coming out, but honestly I haven't touched this card since Standard when it first came out. And for good cause. But it being banned definitely changes the way that Red interacts with the format. I think that the acceleration that it provided with having so many bodies in something like an 8-wax shell, when you've got so many different artifacts that you can sacrifice for it without really impacting yourself negatively, really is, this is a good card to ban if that is what you're trying to accomplish. Where
Yep.
you're trying to decelerate the way that the Cold Out the Red deck runs. You're trying to decelerate the breadth that it can kind of put onto the board as quickly as it can. But it is definitely one of those that, looking at the other two cards, this is the card that I think impacts red the most compared to Deadly Dispute being banned. Yes, it is a impact. I think it is a good impact, but there are so many alternatives for it.
Yeah.
What you're effectively doing is you're making Deadly Dispute, instead of being 1 mana, it has to be 2 mana.
Yeah, you're literally just tuning down
Yeah,
the
exactly.
power. It's not an actual change to the meta with that card. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's totally right on. The other two, though, yeah, definitely changed the meta for sure, in a big way. I think the way that they were thinking about this, is they were really looking at like how many slots in a given deck do you need to dedicate in your sideboard to to one particular deck, and I do feel that a lot of the sideboards really were, like, a lot of your sideboard choices were governed by how you interact with those two decks specifically, with the Brute Scale combo and with mono red, right? You need to be able to not die to mono red on turn 3, turn 4. You need to not be able to die to Brute Scale combo on turn 3, turn 4 as well, right? And you're really figuring out how to do that to the point where, like, I'm a Familiars player, and I was splashing black in Familiars to run Snuff Outs just so I could deal with the Brute Scale combo.
Jeez.
I was running Esper Fams just so I could do it, and it was the only way I could not die to that deck. Otherwise, it's just lost cause.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the article that Gavin Verheerd put out, that Cold Author Red had like an 80% game 1 win rate.
Yeah.
And then it just plummeted in game 2 and 3, which I thought was like perfectly fine, because it's supposed to be a deck that is a skill check for players of like, how well can you sideboard? How well can you find your answers?
Yeah, and I think like Brute Scale is similar, honestly. Like, for me, and you guys can let me know how you feel, I really didn't think that Brute Scale as like a construct, the Brute Scale combo, is that broken because there's answers. However, things get wonky when you start being able to run Writhing Chrysalis in the same shell, and the deck has so much more breadth. It can, play fast, it can play long, it can outgrind almost everything except for maybe like Affinity, but it becomes just so overwhelmingly powerful because it's like every archetype in one deck. That's what really puts it over. It's the combination of things. And for me, the problem was like, yeah, it's like, how many cards do I have to dedicate my sideboard? And not that the deck was particularly super busted. It's just like, all right, I do have to run Snuff Out on my decks, or I need to run a bunch of Lightning Bolts, or I need to run I need 8 pieces of single target interaction that is either free or 1 mana, conceivably, to be able to beat this deck. And that's fine, but now maybe I'm losing to like random decks, I'm losing to like Slivers or something. I don't know.
Hey, I don't want to hear any, disdainment against Slivers. Okay? I put up the Slivers 3 weeks ago, and everybody turned around and looked at me and goes, "I'm sorry, your Slivers have flash?" Yes.
You're like, yep,
And they're 9/9s? Yes.
Yeah, that's why you're supposed to tech in Voldekin the Ether Mage.
Yeah. It's like, let's go. We can absolutely do this, because you need to be able to go sideways on some of these things. And I think that one of the issues that kind of comes up in this is you need that cheap single target removal for Brood Scale, and that doesn't work against Cold Author Red. That doesn't work against fairies. Okay, so I'm going to dedicate 8 pieces to Brood Scale, but then Cold Author Red, fairies, mill, Slivers, they're just going to run me over.
You just hard lose to these. Yeah.
Let me run sweepers. Well, okay, Brood Scale just goes.
They just lose to Brood Scale.
and then what am I going to do? So you need to be able to your point, have that ability to sideboard, but you also need to make sure that the format gives you that ability to have the right tools in the right situation. And when you have monolith style decks like this, where you don't have that breadth of answers unless your deck is designed specifically to deal with that. In which case, okay, I'm running an anti-meta deck, or I'm running a meta deck. And that's where you look at that health of the format. So can I take my mono blue mill deck to an event and at least put up numbers. Like, I may not be able to win the event, but am I playing the game? And that's where, if I can at least play the game with a not anti-meta deck and not a meta deck, then it's a healthier format.
Yep. Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, I think, at my locals, we have a lot of talk about playing matchup roulette. And like we felt like a lot of the outcomes of our weeklies, which aren't huge, we probably have, on a good day, we have like 20 people or so. It really did feel like it's like, well, yeah, I 3-0'd because I just didn't hit any of my bad matchups, and the bad matchups are like 9-1, like 9-1 in their favor. Right. So it was just really brutal. I'm just like, all right, we rolled the dice and I won. I won the dice roll. Okay, I guess I just win. Which, doesn't feel great. I feel like it takes agency away from the players, and that's where I think these bans are coming in. I think feels good. I largely agree with the choices because of that. Not because decks were wildly overpowered, but because I think it gives these choices are an effort to give more agency back to the players and to like some semblance of skill level.
Absolutely. And I looking at Cold Out the Red, that came out Scars Mirrodin. That's when I was really getting into Standard, playing competitively and the such like that. And one of the things that I always remembered about that era was you had effectively rock, paper, scissors at that time. And it's like, this is not oppressive. You didn't have a single deck that was way up there. You had these 3 decks, and you had variations on these 3 decks. And it's like, yeah, there is the whole, matchup roulette that you were talking about, but the fact that you could have all of these off-meta decks also at least show up and throw monkey wrenches into things was relevant at the time. And I think that from a Kodotha Red being banned perspective, I think that you get closer to that. I think that from a Deadly Dispute perspective, you get a little bit healthier with regards to deck building, but not the meta. And then from Brood Scale, I think that if they had only banned Kodotha Red and Deadly Dispute, the meta would be better. But I think that Basking Brood Scale getting banned really just shakes it up just enough that I feel like they're aiming in that direction of healthiness.
Yeah, because talking with Patessis like a couple weeks ago in our morning conversations, and if you guys haven't watched Patessis' videos over on YouTube, the link is going to be down below. The man makes amazing 60-card content. He was saying that, it is rock, paper, scissors, and it is that triangle. And to me, I was like, that doesn't sound terrible as like a weeklies, but now thinking about it, it's like, it sucks to walk into your LGS, pay $10, and lose every single matchup before you even like actually get to draw a card.
Yeah, and I think it really when that really feels bad is when you enter large tournaments. When you're entering like a 40-50 person or more tournament, then you're like, all right, I spent all this time, effort, money to get here. I want to have fun and play some good games that feel like I'm actually playing the game versus just like sitting down and like, well, I guess I just lose. All right.
I mean,
cool.
Me playing those, that's how I'm going to feel whenever I see a card playing shop. For sure.
That's fair. We talked a little bit about the cards that have gotten banned, and, Rules Committee has, they taketh away, but they also giveth. So they gave us a different combo deck. Let's talk about the unbans. There are 2, right? It's just 2.
Yep, just 2.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
Franklin here, take the first one.
Yeah, the first one being High Tide, the combo deck that the Pauper format panel wants to see come back. They took away a combo deck, they gave us back a combo deck.
High Tide was never legal in Pauper. Actually, before they retroactively banned it, preemptively banned it rather, before they even started the format. They're like, this card will never see the light of day.
And now it sees the light of day, and it's actually putting up pretty good numbers. It hasn't won any events, but it's top 80.
It's been unveiled for the first time.
I think that's interesting when you're looking at stuff like unbannings, when you're looking at what you can introduce to a format, especially when you've removed a lot of the offending combinations that you could get with High Tide.
There's no Drake.
Frantic Search is bad still.
You get rid of Frantic Search, so you're getting rid of these untap enablers, which would make High Tide truly oppressive. And you're going, okay, do other stuff with it, like borderline fair High Tide.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, but still, it's as close to fair High Tide as we can get without making dramatic changes elsewhere. And I think that when you're doing a shakeup like this, doing these types of unbannings, even if they are experimental, it's still going to be a great experience. You're going to get a lot of people coming out of the woodworks, just forcing themselves to try new things. You're going to get a lot of people that now need to respond to these experiments. And then you're going to get people like me who are just going to show up with slivers and go, I don't care.
Oh, my slivers was like, my island's temporarily tapped for 2? I'll flash in more stuff.
Okay. So it is a wonderful option when you know that it is relatively safe. Like, the community is going to break High Tide. This is going to happen. But at least from some amount of rationale, that there is some safety in bringing it back in. And I think that I like the unban for sure.
Yeah. And for those CPDH players who are listening to this, if you are a Scholar player, or a Tadiova player, right? And you're playing these High Tide decks. Now's the time to try out 60 card because you can get that fixed. Because before, that was one of the few, maybe the only format that really cared about High Tide. I think it was CPDH. I don't think any other format cares about High Tide, or either that or High Tide's banned, in the format. So. Yeah, I mean, like, now this is the only other format that you can, like, experience High Tide and, like, the fun that comes with it. I mean, it's one of the most broken rituals ever printed. So, yeah, come over, play some 60 card, Scholar players. You'll probably have a good time.
And, like, speaking of stuff that can get unbanned very safely, Prismatic Lens, or Prophetic Lens is back.
Nope, wrong. Prophetic Prism.
Prophetic Prism, okay.
Wrong on all accounts, but
I got wrong on all of them. But
there was an attempt.
Yeah.
There was an attempt. Prophetic Prism. This card, it's shocking that it was banned. So there's like 2 cards that I always felt was like, I get why they're banned. I get why they were banned at the time, but really, I think it's just some like hardcore cope happening back in the day. But Prophetic Prism, and then all the other one is, in my opinion, is Bonder's Ornament. Like, look, Bonder's Ornament it's good. It's good in a deck.
Yeah, I'll say Rohan.
Deck.
Yeah, Rohan, I think right now is like probably the best time to explain like why Bonder's Ornament's banned, because we've had a whole bunch of Pauper Commander players asking, it's like, oh, why is this thing banned?
Yeah.
And I told them, like, if it's unbanned, everyone plays it just by accident.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone was playing Tron at the time. And Tron was running Roughshed over the format because it had both of these cards. It had Prophetic Prism and Bonder's Ornament at the same time. So it was able to fix its mana and draw cards for basically doing nothing except for playing Tron lands.
And I think this was around the same time of like the Golos ban. It was like, this is just 5-color good stuff. Let's just jam a bunch of things in there. And it did heavily muddle the design space when you're trying to build the deck. Yeah. And it's like, okay, if I'm going to play anything that's Tron, I'm playing Rainbow Tron. So that means I'm playing 5 colors. I'm running the full suite in a deck that's known for running colorless lands.
Yep.
Okay, so you're going to remove the enabler in order to open up some of that design space.
Mm-hmm.
And the other problem was, and yes, I was that player, because I ran Rainbow Tron. It was like one of my favorite decks.
And it's a great deck. It was the best big mana deck at the time.
Absolutely. But the problem is, how long did it take you to win?
Your
turn was 12 minutes long. I felt like I was playing KCI in Modern again.
Pretty much.
I was like, there is no quick way of doing this.
Nope.
You need to just be able to get the right colors.
It's like the slowest manual Storm deck of all time.
So when you're talking about why you would ban a card like that, it is that one card leaving the format allowed that deck to kind of fall off the wayside and open up huge spaces for design.
Yep, it's true. However, now things have changed. Fire design has changed everything, right? We have like And I know Deadly Dispute got banned, but we have all the Deadly Dispute copies. So like drawing a one card with Bonder's Ornament every turn, no one cares. Like now we're doing Rowan's Grim Searches. We are Fanatical Offerings, Lorien Revealed. We've got so many ways to draw a zillion freaking cards that are significantly better than that card. So I think it's just a story of it getting power crept super hard. And I think if it comes back, it'll see play. The Tron list will probably run a copy, maybe two. But will it break anything? Probably not. Will Affinity still be wildly busted? Yes.
But I don't think it's going to be running it anyway, but we'll see.
No, it won't be running it. But I'm just saying, like, it's not going to make any. It's not going to supersede the most broken decks in the format. Actually,
funny enough, now that I'm looking at this deck list from the MTGO challenge, there's one Prophetic Prism in there.
Yeah, you're seeing. I think Affinity runs one Prophetic Prism, and that's like a personal preference. You don't have to, whatever. I've seen Boros Synthless playing them, and they're able to like use it to splash. You're seeing them using it to splash black, so they can play Refurbished Familiars.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, yeah, it's quite good. They're kind of like they're towing the line between Mardu Synth and Boros. They can basically do the Mardu stuff, but just in a cleaner way. Also, it allows them to run some number of Weather the Storms in the sideboard, which is interesting. Instead of having to run like Arishin Cleric, which the card sucks. So instead of having to like bounce Arishin Cleric with like a Core Skyfisher, and it's just like it's going to eat a bolt or whatever. They can just straight up run a clean life gain source with Weather, which is great. So yeah, it breathes some life into Boros Synth, I think, more than anything. Oh yeah, also Tron, right? Tron gets it, and now they basically have just another set of what's it called, the lens.
Yeah, I mean they've just got another way of filtering their mana, which is what Tron notoriously needs.
Yeah,
I think that the difference is that Tron doesn't have the win cons that it used to have, so you need to be able to go in different directions. And a lot of those directions are, honestly, a lot more fun to play. A lot more fun to play against. So, and they're easier to execute on. So yeah, I need the mana fixing in order to splash through my sideboard in order to be a viable deck. But also, I'm using the mana fixing in order to get my green conveniently so that I can slam out one of my Titans. It's like, let's go.
Yep. Yeah, and like all the Tron lists are looking pretty good right now, and there's so many variants of Tron that it seem reasonable versus like back, like a year, last year and the previous, it was really just Ultratron. Like if you're not playing Ultratron, you're like kind of fucking up. Like if you're trying to be really competitive, that's the one option. But now we've got so many, like Flickertron has come back, which makes me really excited as a control player. I love watching paint dry. So yep, that's the deck for me.
You win game one and you drag out game two.
Right?
You're good, right?
At least I'm not a dirty fog player. Mono Red Tron seems back on the menu. I played a league today where I played against a Mono Black Tron, which was looking really cool, and also using Prophetic Prisms, which was dope. Stompy Tron, like you were saying, Yami. Yep. Mono Green Stompy Tron is looking really good. Of course, the classic Alter Tron. There's a bunch of lists out there that are all looking awesome at the moment, and that's really exciting. So I love that, like, this one card has breathed a little bit more life into the Tron variants. So it's not all just, combo Ultratron.
I also like that, like you were mentioning with, Boros being able to kind of splash into Mardu. It isn't breaking anything. It's not pushing anything too far over the top, but it is giving that extra space for design, and I like it.
Yeah, and I like that making the Hawks good again is a really great counter to Fairies. Fairies preys on unfair decks, and we were seeing that in the last meta with Brute Scale combo. Fairies kind of rising to the top because they're one of the best answers, if not the best answer to that deck. And now it's still probably the best answer to the High Tide deck, so they're still going to be on top. It's just a good deck, and I think little tweaks have been made over the past year or so, even though it really hasn't gotten a lot of new cards, if any. But it's just like people have really figured out how to hone it in, and they realize that it's still damn good if you're a decent player. And Skyfisher does not give a shit about Spellster sprites and ninjas. So it's great. It's great to see Synth coming back. That makes me really happy. It was Boris Synth was my first 6-card Pauper deck, so it's always near and dear to my heart. Yeah, let's talk about the decks that you guys are brewing. What are you playing in 60 card? Have you been playing at all since the bans and since the past couple days? What are you playing? What are you planning on brewing? Are you buying new cards? Hit me, Yami. What do you got?
So I about 3-4 years ago built a battle box for Pauper, 60 card. I had 20 decks, and then I took a step back and let the store kind of run with it for a while. Mm-hmm. I came back about a month and a half ago, got the box, realized about a third of the decks were banned because of reasons. And I've been working with Gator on really just refreshing all of those decks.
Yeah.
So some of my personal favorite ones, definitely looking at Tron. So the new Tron deck that we've been brewing, that Stompy version, has been a lot of fun. Even if it's not the most competitive and it doesn't, have all of the answers for everything, it is just a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, I'm going to post a list down in the description. But it's like, I encourage everyone to just don't look at the list. Just hit playtest on Moxfield.
Just hit playtest. Just go.
Just play it.
It is absolutely a fun deck to play.
Are you running a full set of all 3 Cascade creatures?
So no.
Okay.
I am running 3 of the Golem, and I'm running 3 Candy Trail on the board, so that if I don't want to Cascade, I just throw in Candy Trail and I get the Scry effect instead. So a big portion of the deck is absolutely just putting out feeders, but then it's also about finding the right answer, being able to filter through your deck appropriately, making sure that you can nail Tron on turn 3 consistently without trouble. So tons of play that doesn't require, just a high level of planning. You can just go and quite literally grab the deck, and if you've got some combination of spells and lands in your hand, you can probably just play the hand, and it'll just keep going. Tron is absolutely right up there.
Yeah, the other problem I have with that is whenever I play it, I have an Export Hadra stuck in my hand, and then I get yelled at saying, "Oh, Kunks, that's a play pattern issue." I'm like, "How is it a play pattern issue if I'm only drawing towers?"
Yep. So I mean, it has so many different ways of getting so many different lands. It is the fun deck. The other deck that if I was to go to a tournament and play would be my White-Black Pestilence deck. That has always been my favorite 60-card deck, so much so that my CPDH deck is also in Orzhov. And I wish that there was a foil Pestilence so that I could put it into my foil Abdel deck, but I'll be calm, I'll be fine. But yeah, so that is my competitive deck. That's the deck that speaks to me the most, and that's the deck that, honestly, I don't think I need to change much of that deck at all with these bans because I wasn't running any of the banned cards. And all of the decks that were running those cards that now change, or any of these new decks that are coming through, I'm already running 7 discard spells. So what do I care?
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
The deck already does everything that I want it to. So that is, if I was to go to an event, that's a deck that I would just keep brewing up and keep getting reps in with.
Right on. Do you run an Okiba Gang Shinobi in that deck?
I used to run 2 in the sideboard. I actually swapped it out, mostly because I wasn't doing enough attacking.
Okay. You're playing more of a control list.
Yeah, I was playing a lot more control effect with it. So a lot of times when I'm attacking, it is going to be with like my Guardian. And it's like, do I really want to remove
You're not going to bounce the Guardian, yeah.
No, I'm not going to bounce the Guardian. The Guardian is there on defense as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I removed that, and I just went with Life Gain and Hate instead.
That's awesome. That's sick. Love to hear it. Franklin, what are you building? What are you brewing? What are you playing?
All right, so I'm still playing elves no matter what. It's super funny because when James went over to when Gator went over to because when I went over to Gator's house with James there and I was just playing a whole bunch of decks. He was like, "Whatever you do, don't play elves. It's too complicated for you." I'm like, "Nah, you're dumb as hell. This shit's the easiest thing in the world."
Yeah.
Played everything out perfectly. It was like Bro, Nettle Sentinels, like the only thing I kind of forgot was to untap the Nettle Sentinels, but like once I realized the interaction between Nettle Sentinel and Burst Lord Ranger, I'm like, this is the easiest thing in the world. What are you guys talking about?
Yep. So the problem that we always have with Franklin playing Elves is he never has a hand. So one sweep and that's it.
He doesn't know how to hold back.
No, that's not true. After a while, I'm just like, I will stop casting stuff.
Exactly. When we say it's a play pattern issue, it's a play pattern issue. Now,
no fear of breath weapon.
Yeah, exactly. Does that allow him to win? Absolutely. Never punish.
Yeah, it's like if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. It's fine.
Yep.
But as for brewing, I just actually dropped off Boggles with Gator last night, so hopefully Boggles gets fixed. The biggest problem I have with that deck is like, okay, cool, I have all that glitters and Ancestral Mask. These things aren't hitting hard enough. I'm not drawing through that deck fast enough.
Well, not all that glitters. That shit's still banned.
Oh, well, not all that glitters. What's the other one then? Ethereal Armor? Yeah.
Ethereal Armor.
And Ancestral Mask, yeah.
And Ancestral Mask, yeah. I mean, I always loved putting, what is it? The Aura Beast. I always love putting that in the sideboard because everybody's like, oh no, I got to be able to get like, these sacrifices or something like that, or the sweeps in order to make sure that your Boggles goes away early. And it's like, okay, here's my Aura Gnarlid. That's just a big dude. Like, let's go. So yeah, and you don't need to suit it up. Like, it's good just on its own because you're already supporting the rest of that game plan.
But yeah, that and like helping out with Affinity, I just ordered like 8 Fanatical Offerings.
Nice.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to get it because I also have Ringing Strike Mastery in that order, and so I have to wait until Tarkir releases in order to get the cards.
Yep. I see. Card Kingdom?
No. Cool Stuff because it's right down the street.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Not sponsor of our channel yet. MTG Nerd Girl, I have to talk to you later about that if you're watching.
One of the biggest things when looking at brewing, especially decks that weren't directly impacted, is looking at the sideboard. And I think that's where a big portion of the changes are going to be coming in.
Oh, yeah.
And to Gavin's point is, okay, I don't need my mono blue mill deck to run 7 or 8 blast effects.
Yeah, not anymore. You don't need that.
Pulled out the red. I don't need that anymore. I can probably go down to 3 and then start putting other fun stuff in there. So that's going to be what I'm looking at with a variety of decks.
Yeah, because I think in Elves I don't have to run. Well, I still probably should run all the blue blasts in there anyway.
Yes, you run all of the blue blasts anyways. One dragon breath and you're in trouble.
You're just dead. Yeah, it's true. Yep. I mean, I think it really just depends. It comes down to, in my opinion, like how good this high tide deck is that's coming up, and how oppressive it's going to be. Is that the new thing that demands 4 to 6 slots in the sideboard?
Yeah, and I think that one of the interesting parts about the new high tide deck is going to be what are the interaction points? Like, what type of interaction can you put in there? Is it just, do you have a creature that if I can just remove it just right, the rest of the House of Cards falls? Or is there a specific spell that I need to go with? But then you're also got to look at, okay, what does your variety look like? Do I need to have a variety of things, or can I have, a handful of spells that do multiple things?
Or do we just all run Duress?
Well, actually, Duress is amazing. Duress is just a good card in general, but the actual silver bullet to this deck, the most brutal card against it, are Flag Bearers.
Is it?
Absolutely backbreaking. They run almost no creature removal in the deck. It's like 1 to 2 snaps. That's it. That's all they get. I mean, they have Merchant Scrolls to find snap.
Yeah.
But that's
it. No, snap is in the sideboard.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. They have snaps. Merchant Scrolls to find snaps, but that's the only removal they have. But it requires, committing to. They can't go infinite, so they have to commit, spend mana to either find snap and play it or cast it. Of course you can untap, whatever. But it forces them to cast all their untappers targeting your. They're all untapped target permanent.
Yeah.
It's absolutely brutal. Very funny.
Yeah.
Very funny.
And I like that, especially when you look at something like Gigadrowse. Gigadrowse is not like Arc Lightning, where as long as one of the targets is, the flag bearer, the rest of it can go elsewhere. This is, you're making multiple copies, all of those copies.
All those have to target, yeah.
And it doesn't matter. things like that are going to be great.
Mhm.
Looking at the list that you shared earlier, I mean, I love the idea of the Murmuring Mystic as just okay, well, if I can't win through plan A, here are
You just
what,
beat with birds.
80
Yeah.
birds? Like, let's
Yeah.
go to town,
Yep.
And yes, it requires.
Oh yeah, that list that you put up there, which I'll also link in the description, which is Mono Blue High Tide list from Season of Mist in the challenge from the 4th.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's no creatures in there too, so like
There's no creatures.
yeah, a single Coalition Honor Guard is just gonna run house through that deck.
Right. So when you get something like that, where you can just pivot so well into you don't think I run creatures? Here are a ton of creatures. That is something that I'm looking forward to seeing. How are people going to be sideboarding against this deck? How surprised are people going to be when Murmuring Mystic comes in and you go, okay, here's a turn 2, turn 3 Murmuring Mystic. Why'd you blow a High Tide on a Murmuring Mystic? And it's like, because next turn I'm going to make a bunch of them. And then I'm just going to keep going. And it's like, okay, this is a problem. I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. So there's a lot that can be done there. I've seen some lists that are playing some number of Archaeomancers and Ghostly Flickers, and they're looking to draw through your deck to find that, and then eventually start going off with that way. And there's a bunch of interactions that you can do with Ghostly Flicker at that point to try and win the game. You can also get things like, once you have Infinite Blue, you can use any kind of blue thing with an ETB that could kill you or mill you, right? There's a lot of options there as well. So yeah, there's sky's the limit at the moment with the High Tide deck. Or it'll be like a few weeks, I think, before we see the list sort of start converging on what's working best. But that's exciting. This is the most exciting part, I think, of playing 6-card Pauper. It's especially if you're a brewer. I mean, if you're just a spike and you just want to like play in tournaments and play the best thing ever, you probably want to wait a couple weeks until the lists start getting figured out, and then you could just jump on MPG Top 8 or MPG decks and find the best lists at that point. But I think for brewer right now, it's the Brewer's Paradise. I'm super excited right now. I feel like I'm changing my sideboards literally every day based on what's happening out in the world and the matches I'm also playing either online or in person. And that's like the fun for me. That's like the fun of 60 card for me as a brewer.
Absolutely. While I do appreciate brewing, my whole thing is ideas and execution.
Mm-hmm.
So I may not know all of these different cards, but I know how to find a handful of them. But for me, it's all about that play testing. I will take whatever deck Gator hands me, and he's play it. And I'm like, okay. And I'll play it, and I'll look at it from multiple perspectives, and I go, these are the issues with it. And he'll go, I'll fix that. And this is where you get that opportunity to find that brewer friend and just help them out. Go, these are the problems that I have with it. Solve them.
Yep, and that's my job too. I just take decks, run them into a wall, and get told, "No, Frank, you're the idiot, not the deck." I'm like, trust me, it's the deck.
Right on. That is an extremely viable way of playing Pauper, and also it's a way that you can just get a lot of matches under your belt. And at the end of the day, if you want to improve, that's like what you got to do. You just play a deck, into the ground, right, to really just understand the ins and outs of it. And, for those of you out there who are listening who are, once again, CPDH players and you haven't played this format yet, it's an extremely complex format. Like, the interactions are wildly complicated. They're really deep. I mean, they're as deep as you want them to be. I mean, like, you can play a more straightforward deck. You can play, like, a Gruul, rampy, stompy deck, and it still can be very powerful. In fact, one of the Tier 1 decks right now is just straight up Gruul land destruction with big fatties. You just destroy their lands and you swing. It's not the most complicated deck, but damn, is it good, right? Or you can play this blue High Tide deck, and you can just let your brain melt through your nose while you're like, oh yeah, I can untap this, and then we got basically you're playing Twiddle Storm, right? But in Pauper.
Yeah, I just feel bad for the people who heavily invested into Cycle Storm.
Cycle Storm is really. I don't know what you're talking about, man. Cycle Storm is great right now.
Oh, I thought they needed the Deadly Disputes. No.
There's ways around it.
Okay.
There are ways around it.
This is one of those things where it's like Deadly Dispute being banned does not automatically invalidate a single deck.
Mm-hmm.
All of the decks that are running it as a 4 of will just I'm a fraction of a turn slower.
Yeah, it's literally it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is fractions of a turn
Yep.
It's not my deck no longer functions. So
And the
like
decks
Cold Author Red, like, okay, yeah, you need to pivot.
that has
Yeah.
they're changing how the deck works.
Right.
Yes.
And that's great.
It's good.
Because you need more variety in red.
Mhm.
You need to have more than 2 different red decks.
I mean, yeah. Now I've seen so many different takes on it now, and once again, this is the exciting part. Like, people are still figuring out what's best, but it's so cool. Like, I played against a deck today that was like had like just all like tiny hasty creatures. It was like ginger brutes and shit and coming at me. I was like, whoa, it's lots of you little guys. I got my face beat in. You know, like, I was playing Coggates, and I'm like, I just couldn't find my breath weapons in games 2 and 3. I'm like, oh, I'm just dead. But it was fun. It was sweet. And then, you know, like, I played against another deck yesterday that was like all little guys, and then in game 2, it completely pivoted to like Thermo Alchemists and Kessick Flame Breathers and Burn.
Oh,
and that was their sideboard. It was all the
I love seeing decks.
all the burn cards were in the sideboard, and they completely changed the archetype of the deck in the next games. That's so cool.
Yeah, and that's how you really flex your deck building and sideboarding acumen.
Mm-hmm.
It's being able to go, okay, this is how I think you're going to sideboard. Ta-da! Totally different. Let's go.
Yeah, so sick. I love seeing that. It's really exciting.
Yeah, and I think I tried to fit this one in earlier, but Burn was a lot of fun to play.
Yep.
Burn's awesome. Yeah. Yep. Burn does have that one issue, though, where it's like, it's really about the sideboard so much. Like, you really have to know, like, figure out your sideboard in such a way that you just don't get like housed like in some really awful matchups. There's some really, really brutally bad ones that you just lose, and you have to figure out how to mitigate that. And that's complicated, because then it's like, okay, well, how do I play to my outs here? Do I dodge the truly worst matchups and kind of focus in on everything else, like 90% of the meta? Or do I try and make my bad matchups, good matchups? How does that change my sideboard? So it's like, there's a lot of deck building decisions to be made there, and it's interesting. I know we've talked a lot about deck building. I think the one thing I want to talk about just before we close out here is, you guys played a lot of 60 card. Obviously, we're all CPDH players. How do you feel your 60 card experience has affected your CPDH, either gameplay or brewing and building, or both?
Okay, so from a brewing perspective, this is an easy one. This is why I think that the bans are not cataclysmic. So a lot of people are going doom and gloom. Oh my gosh, the deck is totally invalidated. And it's like, okay, play singleton. Play any singleton format. And Pauper in specific. And it's like, no, you have 7 different cards that do something similar.
Yeah.
Like, being able to brew at a 60 card level simply means that I am playing a more consistent version of my CPDH deck. It's like, okay, let's go. So that type of variety and understanding of that variety will help in both directions. Looking at the 60 card, how do I be more efficient? And looking at the singleton, look at all of the different options I have available to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. It really teaches you the breadth of the card pool. Mm-hmm. And I was going to say something really similar in that, like, it helps you learn what the most broken cards and broken interactions are. Because 60 card Pauper is all about, taking advantage of the absolute most broken interactions in the format. And because of the consistency, there are these micro interactions that we can leverage that you may not think about in a 100 card, singleton. Like, even things like, with Boros Synthesizer, like the core Skyfisher bounce stuff, right? It's like, what are the best things you could be bouncing and the best things you could be doing with that card? And, we don't think about it too much in 100 card, because it's like, well, what are the chances I'm going to get both my experimental synthesizer and my core Skyfisher at the same time to do the thing? Yeah. It's like, sure. However, that is an edge case in your deck that you can build around. Like, there are a lot of different other types of artifacts that you might want to bounce, or things that you might want to bounce, that are featured in like the Boros Synth deck that you want to pull into your Boros or your Mardu deck or whatever you're building, or your Ephemerate deck, things that want to take advantage of ETBs or whatever you're doing, that are doing that stuff, right? If you're playing like Abdel Red, right? That's something that deck wants to do and cares about, the Hawks and bouncing things. and you can figure out like those niche but very powerful scenarios by playing 60 card, that if you're just jumping into that 100 card deck and you start playing it, yeah, you're focusing on like your combos, you're figuring out how to go off and like how to win, but you might not like see that you actually, in your hand at the moment, you actually have something really cool. You have a really cool interaction there that's value that you may not have picked up on otherwise.
Yeah, and that's something that you kind of missed out on when you were gone. That Gator's been improving his Cerberus list a lot just from all the 60 card Pauper play that he's been doing.
Yep.
Because he put in was the Brute Skill line in there, put in Evolution Witness again because statistically just does magic over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like what you're saying with Brute Scale. I think one of the best things you could do if you play both formats is go look at the ban list, right? Like you were saying, Yami, right? Like I'm talking about ban cards. So CPDH doesn't have the ban cards. So you play 60 card, understand the most broken interactions possible, look at the ban list, and your experience playing 60 card will help inform you on like why those cards are banned. And then you can start taking those cards and incorporating all this really, really busted stuff, right, into your 100 card decks. I mean, it's largely why, now in my Malcolm Breaches deck, I'm back to playing Daze and Gush and Foil, like these are, they might not seem so great in a 100 card singleton format. And I know a lot of people are calling foul on my list. They're like, these cards are negative value, like you're discarding stuff, they're terrible. But when they're good, when you need them in the clutch on turn 4, turn 5, they are so unbelievably broken.
No, and actually,
that's why they were banned.
No, fun enough, all of your discard spells, all the pitch to all your free spells that have a pitch cost, they're all better now because Magmakin Artillers.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And I'm building around that in my particular deck. So. Yeah, I mean, like a lot of my deck building decisions, especially with my Breaches list, have come from my 60 card experience. It's a control deck at the end of the day, and I am a control player. So a lot of that, like the play patterns that I want to be doing in 60 card, I played a lot of like, is it terror, and is it control list? I play a lot of fairies. I play a lot of familiars, a lot of blue control decks. And that at the end of the day is what Malcolm Breaches wants to do. And so like, the play patterns and like how I'm sequencing my turns in 60 card is largely how I want to be sequencing my turns in 100, in CPDH. And so I've tried to build in the redundancy to have, duplicate cards in such a way that my opening 7 is going to look and feel ish, similar to a very good control deck in 60 card. That's sort of my deck building philosophy. And I've kind of built it around my 60 card experience.
No, I just wish that I could actually play Tron in Commander.
Right. Well, this is cope as hell, but there's that Final Fantasy Gruul, right? That uncommon card, the creature comes into play, and you get to find any land and put it into play, right?
Oh my god!
So there
Tron?
There are going to be options.
Red green Tron deck.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be one of those things where it's like just a little bit more in order to be able to play Tron.
Man, if that was Naya and not just red green, you're actually in business because you ephemerate that and just find all your Tron lands would be such a sick deck.
Maybe in like 2036 that'll be possible.
Right? Yeah. Just give me Tron and 100 card, please. That'd be so dope.
No, and I wanted to do like the Simic Precon deck from last year from Modern Horizons that gives you Tron and turns everything into every land flip type.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just had that
Precon. Such a cool deck.
Really cool concept. So weak. So so much work has to go into it.
I think there's a lot of potential to that type of mechanic that you just need a little bit more support. And this is one of those, when you're looking at Magic as a whole, when you've got these types of sets where you have this niche mechanic that you're introducing, I don't think that the everything mechanic is isolated to just that one plane, just that one type of set. Mm-hmm. You can really expand that all over the place.
So much.
And you get just any type of support like that, you can really see something like that just go from fringe to viable.
So mind bending, like what the options start getting like exponential. Yeah. It's really crazy. Well, I mean, I think that kind of brings us there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for being on, Yami. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Super fun to talk some 60 card, something a little bit different for you guys in the audience. Maybe we'll see you at locals or at MTGO. Please don't hurt me too bad. Franklin, you want to take us out?
Yep. Everyone, thank you so much for joining this week. We'll get back to some actual fun PDH stuff next week for sure. But with that, everyone, thank you so much for listening. If you made it this far, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us over on Spotify. Go follow us over on Blue Sky and on TikTok. I know we just hit over 700 subscribers on YouTube, so thank you so much for that. And with that, everyone, have a great week. Thank you for watching. And if you want to support the channel, please subscribe and join the Discord in our link below. And become a member over on our Patreon.
Shout out to all of our patrons: Eric, Coberman, Aaron, Dax, Devin, NYC Burrito, Little Rat Lotad, Frank, Scoob, HZ, and Too Much Do. Thank you for all of your support.